Well, this is my truck. It's a Toyota Land Cruiser 1976 model FJ40. It's a short wheelbase, of course, obviously. And I've done a few things to it to just make it cope better out in the bush and suit my lifestyle a lot better. And a few of those things I'm going to show you now. The first thing I did back in 2002, a mate of mine's pretty handy with a welder, Brett. He made up this roof rack for me. I wanted it to sit down nice and low on the roof. You can see the roof actually goes up above the bottom rail here, and it's curved to the shape of the roof, so you get a bit more aerodynamics out of that. Mounted a couple of 100-watt spotties up the top there. My mate Brett actually welded up the bull bar here, but it was my design. I made up a craftwood template, what I wanted done, and him and a mate of his, Jim, they welded it up and come up with that. It's a fantastic bull bar. It's actually saved this vehicle so many times from different things. It has got a wall wound here, however, a bit of a crease which I have to get out of it. I hit a great big gum tree which is probably 10 times the size of me, and luckily the bull bar saved the car. Couple of 100-watt light force spotlights there on the front. They're long range spotters. They go about 1.2 k's up the road, certainly light it up, and on a high beam there's about 600 watt of light coming out the front of the old girl. So I've got a PDA winch on it. I've just had the PDA drive that's bolts to the side of the gearbox rebuilt by Ben, a mate of mine in town. He's a good mechanic. And it's a 8,000 pound or 3.6 ton winch. Ample for this. I've used it as a tool on a farm, you know, several times, pulling out tree stumps, moving logs, moving cattle, things like that. And I really like that as a winch. The only thing is, if you're in a creek or a river and you stall your vehicle, you can't get to the winch to pull yourself out of trouble, because once your engine stops, your winch stops. So around here, I made this wind deflector or stone guard on the front here, not just to house the name riding shotgun for the old girl. The idea of this is to break up the massive wind that hits the windshield, because this thing goes through a fair bit of juice. It's fairly thirsty on fuel, and having this here has actually made the vehicle more aerodynamic and has brought my fuel costs down. Over here, I've just made a snorkel up. Now, a lot of you who are into four-wheel driving will think, well, I'll put a snorkel on a petrol vehicle, because this has got the 2F motor. It's a 4.2 litre straight six, which I'll show you shortly. But having the air intake up this high off the road, you get cooler air into your vehicle. That is denser, has a lot more oxygen, and your fuel burns cleaner and quicker, and you get a bigger bang for your buck. So it's increased fuel economy as well, and also getting cooler air into the engine makes it run a little bit cooler, and it does help with the dust when you're travelling on dusty roads. There's less dust volume in the air up this high as there is down low, particularly when you're following a vehicle. These tyres and rims here that I'm using, they're a Mickey Thompson Badger Claw mud terrain tyre, which I've found to be extremely good in the mud. They clear the tread pattern out really quickly when you're getting bogged down, and they don't clog up. These rims, they're a 16-inch rim. They are alloy, and a lot of hardcore four-wheel drivers wouldn't touch alloy. I've got a set of steel rims as well, which I can put on this. But these alloys are a very tough alloy rim. They're very structurally sound. They've got a lot of bite here, the way they've been manufactured. The actual centre of the rim is attached by quite a big pad here of alloy. So they are a very tough alloy rim. So these rims are going to hold up to whatever I throw at the old girl. I'll just tell you about the suspension setup under the old cruiser. The springs are by Fulcrum 4x4. They're a formula spring, and I've put these heavy duty spring hangers here in the back. They're 8mm steel, and the shock absorbers are by Tough Dog. There are 1 to 9 adjustability levels on them, depending on the amount of load you've got in your vehicle. You can adjust those up to, you know, stop body roll, things like that. All in all, it's given me a 4.5-inch lift at the front, a 5.5-inch lift at the back. That's increased my ramp over angle and increased my four-wheel drive ability. You know, at the front here I've got a self-centering steering dampener by Tough Dog, just to help tame the old girl on the road. With these big tyres and with the lift, they can tend to wander a little bit, so you've got to try and do things like this just to help it steer straight and track better on the road. So it's a self-centering steering dampener under here. Now, this old girl, when I first got it, had a 63 litre fuel tank in it. Now, that motor is out of a light truck, and the fuel just doesn't last very long. And what I've done is I've gone and put a 137 litre under-seat fuel tank in it, and that gets me a lot further before fuel up stops. So there it is there. I've chosen that version as opposed to a tank at the back here like a drop tank, because it spreads the weight more evenly over the suspension and gives your car a lot more even weight when you're four-wheel driving. Yeah, it's a bit more capable instead of having, you know, heavier parts of your car up the front or the rear, and so I find that works for me, and it's been really good. The old donk under here, she's a 2F motor, a 4.2 litre 6-cylinder. It's actually an exact replica of an early model Chevy motor, and Toyota have taken it on and improved on it. The carby here is pretty much standard. I've put a new kit in it, and it has got a Hyclone in there, which just helps with the air-fuel mixture. It burns a little bit leaner and a little bit cleaner. Over here, I've actually got an electronic ignition unit out of a Toyota Crown, had it remapped by an auto electrician, and had that fitted and got rid of the points. Because every 1,000 k's or so, as any of the owners of these old girls know, you're under the bonnet here, you're trying to fix up the points, stuff like that. So that electronic ignition has just cut my maintenance level right down. I hardly have to look under here. The motor's been rebuilt. It was rebuilt at about 380,000 k's. It's done about 500,000 k's now. The whole vehicle overall I'm talking about. New radiator, new hoses, new leads, rebuilt starter motor and heavy duty alternator. It's an 80 amp alternator, which I've got linked up to a dual battery system inside and an inverter, a 500 watt 800 peak inverter. I can run my fridge and freezer off that. Excessive lights, charge batteries, do different things like that. Yeah, everything else is just pretty much just kept up to date and maintained as best I can. So it doesn't use a drop of oil. I've just put a new gearbox and transfer case in it, and the PDA takeoff, it's all been rebuilt. So yeah, she's basically a new 31-year-old vehicle. All in all, she's a fantastic off-road little unit, and I wouldn't trade her for anything.